President Trump made a significant announcement about the United States' impending Golden Dome in the Oval Office yesterday. Let's go ahead and roll B1 to get a flavor of how Donald Trump described this project.
I'm pleased to announce that we have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. So we'll be talking to them. They want to have protection also. So as usual, we help Canada do the best we can. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful. And now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air. I'm also pleased to report that the One Big Beautiful Bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome to help construction get underway. That's the initial sort of a down deposit. And we have probably, you're talking about, General, we're talking about $175 billion total cost of this when it's completed.
Well, according to the New York Times, that was actually also the Defense Department suggested the Golden Dome moniker, knowing that it would probably appeal to Donald Trump. So like, Israel's got an Iron Dome. Donald Trump, you need a Golden Dome.
It's a little bit ballsy, though, for him to go for that when he spent years with Democrats accusing him of taking a golden shower.
I don't think
and
he
now
thinks
he's
about
going to have
that
a golden
anymore.
dome preventing us from things raining down on us.
Actually, I take that back. He probably does think about that all the time.
Of course he does.
Yeah, he's probably deeply irritated by that.
Yes. He was bothered by that one.
Well, maybe the Pentagon, actually, this is really a way to continue embarrassing Donald Trump and the Defense Department. But it will be a pretty penny for the contractors in all likelihood. Lockheed Martin CEO was on Fox and Friends this morning saying it will be built domestically. Trump is saying it'll come in at about $175 billion, which seems impossibly low. The Congressional Budget Office is putting that more at $542 billion, which in the context
and
annually...
He said 2 to 3 years. CBO says 20 years.
Yeah. And in the context of an annual defense budget that's more than $2 trillion, it's not insane to propose a $500 billion idea that could hypothetically protect the country from missiles if it does what the Trump administration wants it to do, which is enormously ambitious.
But missiles shot by who? Normally, when you concoct one of these things, like you have first spent the propaganda capital to sufficiently scare the public into believing that a particular boogeyman or boogie woman is going to be shooting missiles at us, and so therefore we need to spend all of this money to give $500 billion to Elon Musk to build this thing because these scary people that we've told you about are going to attack us. He just skipped right over that. Are we such pushovers now? We don't even need to be propagandized into fear. We're just like, okay, sure, go for it. Who's shooting missiles at us?
I mean,
Scheinbaum?
Maybe, but no.
Iran?
No, I mean,
we're reaching a deal with them. North Korea is his best friend. Russia? Is it Russia?
It's
China?
It could be anyone. That's the point.
And if it's China, come on. You think they can't get through whatever Elon Musk puts together?
I think the rate of technological advancement has been so rapid that the world feels like an extremely scary place, to the point where people don't need to be propagandized into some type of significant, urgent, single problem. Although it's probably no coincidence that it's happening as the negotiations with Iran are unfolding either. I mean,
it would be cool if Star Wars could first kind of break the fiscal back of the Soviet Union and then break the fiscal back of the United States.
It could.
Kill two empires without ever actually getting built.
Well, it's a complete parallel, obviously, to the Reagan years, because on the other side, Donald Trump is working on a massive tax cut proposition right now. So as they're, as you have your deficit hawks freaking out about spending, you're also about cutting spending and using taxes to aspirationally juice the economy. Then you're also trying to increase defense spending significantly with a massive expenditure here. Now, Trump says again that he's putting it way lower than the CBO estimate. That's $500 billion, which is, a significant chunk of the annual defense budget. But, I think if it were to do what it said it would do, it would be a big deal. Now, Trump also...
And the budget, so think about this. They're estimating a particular cost for a weapons project. Has it ever come in under, ever, in the history of the world?
No.
So this would be the first one to come in under, and it's going to come in at 90% under.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds like a deal. But again, here's...
Can I bid for this?
Probably.
I will not build something and take $500 billion.
You will automatically be competitive.
Excellent.
With the rest of the contractors. And you could just take a 10-year vacation too.
Yeah.
Oh, Boeing's going to do Air Force One. Don't worry about it. They're on it.
Yeah.
So
it's taken them a decade for Air Force One.
Yeah, this should be nothing.
They're going to build this in 2 years. Okay.
So the parallels to the 1980s continue. Donald Trump was on Capitol Hill yesterday trying to negotiate with House Republicans in particular who want to pass their bill. Actually, they want to pass it today and send it over to the Senate because they really want to, first of all, they want...
beautiful bill.
Johnson set a genuinely arbitrary deadline of Memorial Day, but from his perspective, if you don't set a deadline, then this is going to bleed into the fall. And so I think they want to do this by 4th of July from the Senate side. We'll see how reasonable that is, but they actually were marking up the bill until 6 a.m. just today. Once again, all those staffers pouring out for them tonight. They've had a rough couple of weeks, but let's take a listen to Donald Trump after that meeting, chatting with reporters. And bear in mind that this is, I think, a parallel with the 1980s in an interesting sense, that Republicans are trying to get a limited government stimulus to the extent that you can call it that, while also blowing up the deficit past. And now you're going to face questions just like this one, B3.
You campaigned on lowering the price of groceries. How will you justify cutting food assistance in this bill?
Let me just tell you, the cut is going to give everybody much more food because prices are coming way down. Groceries are down. Eggs. You told me about eggs. You asked me a question about eggs my first week. You said eggs. I said, I just got here. Tell me about eggs. And it was going through the roof. You know that eggs now way down. Everybody's buying eggs. Groceries down. Energy's down. Gasoline is now they're buying gasoline now for $1.99.
You said eggs.
Week one,
he had a great interaction with a reporter. This was Reese Gorman from Notice. So Notice.
Notice. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm with Trump on this one.
Yeah, same. This is B4.
Andy Harris said that you didn't adequately convince enough people to vote for the bill. The House Freedom Caucus.
You mean after this speech?
After this speech, that's what
I think so. Well, why don't we see how the vote is? I think it was a great talk. It wasn't a speech. We talked about things. Who do you work for?
Notice.
Who?
Notice.
I don't even know what the hell that is. You gotta get yourself a real job.
Get yourself a real job.
Get a haircut and get a job.
If you were listening to that, what you missed was Mike Johnson awkwardly standing next to Donald Trump, trying not to bust out laughing the entire exchange.
Trump is funny. We got to give him that.
Oh, he is funny. Now, B5, though, is an interesting development as well. This is Wall Street Journal's Olivia Beaver saying that when Donald Trump was delivering his message about Medicaid, which is basically he doesn't want cuts that don't have anything to do with, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse, he said about the Freedom Caucus, quote, I love the Freedom Caucus. Please leave them alone. Freedom Caucus are my guys.
So how do you square that?
You don't. You don't.
Freedom Caucus are his guys who want drastic Medicaid cuts.
Yes.
Trump says don't do drastic Medicaid cuts, but also leave my guys alone. It goes back to that thing where the number one thing he cares about is do people like him? Mm-hmm. And Freedom Caucus people are clear that they like him. Mm-hmm. And he prefers that to them agreeing with his populist policy of we're not actually going to hurt poor people to do this tax cut for the rich.
No, it hasn't always been that way. So when Chip Roy has pushed back on Trump, like raising the debt ceiling, for example, Trump has absolutely exploded on
Right,
Chip
said I'll
Roy.
primary you. And
Yeah, so I'm curious how long this lasts. He does seem to be much more sympathetic to negotiating with the HFC guys than with Mike Lawler. This is the next element for the screen. This is a post from our friend Jake Sherman at Punchbowl. If you missed that segment a couple weeks ago, just put it into your YouTube browser, Breaking Points Punchbowl. Sherman says that Trump went up to Lawler from the informal SALT caucus and said, quote, "I know your district better than you do. If you lose because of SALT, you were going to lose anyway." And that is because Lawler is pushing for, obviously, a higher cap on the SALT deduction than the $30,000, which is, by the way, already very generous. It's already tripling the current deduction. So quite amusing quote there from Trump.
And Lawler represents the Hudson Valley district north of Manhattan.
Yeah.
Trump might actually know it better than him. His point is an interesting one, and it's one that I've made a mirror version of on the left at times, like where it's like, look, you're not actually gonna lose over this.
Yeah.
So just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
If you do lose over it, you are actually gonna lose anyway. Mm-hmm. So I agree with Trump's analysis, and I think it is actually quite possible that he does know Lawler's district better than he does. The SALT thing, if you're not familiar with it, it means it stands for state and local tax deduction. If you are upper middle class in a place like the Hudson Valley, and you have a $1 million house or a $1.5 million house, even if you're making, let's say, $300,000 a year, which is a huge amount of money, all of it's going to pay this house. And then at the end of the year, you get hit with these high state and local taxes. And it used to be that you could deduct all of those off of your federal taxes. Now there's a cap on that. They want to raise the cap. Mm-hmm. So it would basically be a very big tax cut for people who live in like $1 million homes.
Yeah. Yep. No, exactly. And so let's combine all of this together.
And those are Lawler's people.
Those are Lawler's people. And Trump, to the point about that he was making about the Freedom Caucus and about Lawler, what that gives right now is leverage for the Freedom Caucus to continue pushing for cuts. And when you ask, how do you square it, to the, quote, waste, fraud, and abuse that they see in Medicaid. And the problem is you have to be able to find sufficient waste, fraud, and abuse and do it quickly enough. Because part of their frustration is a lot of this is funny business with the CBO projections in order to make the numbers work. It's still blowing up, what, $4 trillion, isn't it? I have to check the number exactly, but it's still a budget-busting bill, and that's a real problem.
And what they'll say is that you're pushing all of the cuts to Medicaid down the road, mm-hmm. and when we get to down the road, you'll undo the cuts.
Right.
So you'll take the tax cuts now, and you'll pay for them by promising to hurt poor people later. But when it actually gets to it, you won't do it because you'll realize, oh, wait, we're a working class party now. Mm-hmm. And we're actually going after our own people.
Right.
Who don't believe that they're getting a government handout just by their parents being covered by Medicaid or mm-hmm. them being covered by Medicaid. Well, because they say, we've worked our whole lives and this is health insurance for us, or for our parents, or for our children who are suffering.
It's particularly difficult when it's juxtaposed with other elements of the bill. For example, a massive corporate tax cut. So if you're going from 21% to 15% for corporations, yes, there's some projections that say this would be tax relief. I mean, every projection basically says this would be tax relief for the middle class. The question is it more tax relief for the rich than it is for the middle class? Some of that's going to depend on what happens with SALT. But I think it's especially difficult when you're passing a big corporate tax cut to then also go after quote unquote waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. I think that's something that people like Chip Roy are aware of and know that needs to be done sensitively, but also are saying we've staked out, like the amount of the amount of political capital that we have put behind Doge, for example. If you're Chip Roy, if you're a Freedom Caucus member, if you're a Trump supporting member of the House of Representatives, your district is pro-Trump, you have put political capital on the line for Doge to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and to cut government spending. And now you're being asked to support a big spending bill. It raises the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. I'm reading a rundown here from Politico of what's in the bill right now. It spends $3.8 trillion to lock in the tax cuts. There's the car loan deduction, so interest on car loan deductions, that's a good thing. Child tax credit increased by $500, although some people really want that to be a lot higher. Great tax hike on university endowments, so that goes from 1.4% to 21%, but it would cut $625 billion through Medicaid that right now, as Politico puts it, is, quote, largely through new work requirements. And as CBO puts it, would, quote, lead to 8.6 million more people losing their health insurance. It phases out clean energy programs, which have been sort of, I'm not a fan of most of what that's done. It has been something of an industrial policy in localities around the country over recent years. They do want to cut back food stamps and certain education programs. So the headlines, if this bill passes over the next year or so, are definitely difficult when the bill also had a big corporate, or will have a big corporate tax cut, and all of that stuff in it too.
It's also idiotic just on a fiscal level in the sense that, oh, you're going to save money by kicking 7 million people off of health insurance. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's explore this magical thinking for a moment. Mm-hmm. Are these 7 million people going to all of a sudden not get sick and never need any medical treatment? Because that's great. If that's the case, I support that. Like a policy that would make 7 million people magically immune to any disease for the next 7 million years or accidents. Probably not going to happen. Those people, instead of going to their doctor because they have medical insurance, are now going to go to the emergency department. Emergency department is going to send them a $12,000 bill, for showing up in the emergency department for whatever malady they had. That person doesn't have $12,000. The hospital then is going to carve it up and send the bill out to everybody else. Or is Trump going to yell at them to just eat it, like he's yelling at Walmart to eat the prices? No. Like, if these people are still getting sick, we as a society are still treating them. The only difference is it's going to cost us more to treat them because we've kicked them off health insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're actually, like, even your deficit cutting Medicaid cuts are going to long-term add to everybody's costs, whether it's raising your own cost of insurance, raising the bills that you pay, tweaking private equity to like screw you a little bit harder next time you come into one of their hospitals, or adding to the deficit.
The only person or the only group of people that our half and half system is good for right now is the same people who will benefit from this. And it's, massive like conglomerates. It's not people, it's not the government, because we just have this mixed system. It's like half capitalist and half like democratic socialist subsidized.
Right, where the hospitals are required to treat people.
Right.
And I don't think anybody wants to change that law.
No, absolutely not. And it's completely inefficient, and it's not good for anyone except for the people who are profiting off of all of it in the meantime. So it's going to be this entire thing. If you're the Trump administration, you have promised to make the tax cuts permanent, and that will bring some relief to the middle class, but you've also promised to get America's fiscal house in order. And you've promised to do these massive new defense initiatives, which, by the way, as the Lockheed COO is saying on Fox and Friends this morning, if it's built domestically, that could be that could juice the economies in places where they're manufacturing parts of it. I don't even know what that's going to look like. I don't think anybody knows what that's really going to look like. Reagan's SDI, which sort of gets laughed at, like Star Wars sort of gets laughed at. Well, Trump made an interesting point when he was rolling out the Golden Dome announcement that he was like, Ronald Reagan wanted to do this years ago, but we didn't have the technology. Now we do have the technology. SDI laid the groundwork for decades of R&D that came from that massive ambition. I'm not at all laughing at the idea of having like significant ambitions and sort of pie in the sky ideas. I actually don't think that's that insane and crazy. And we don't. It's fine to laugh at, but it doesn't always turn out to be a joke. There's
right.
You can sort of nudge some things in the right direction when you do that. But this is a recipe for a fiscal disaster, and everyone knows it. But Republicans are locked in. They're locked in, and their best argument right now, what they're telling the Freedom Caucus guys, is that it's better than nothing. If you're forced to choose between the lesser of two evils, the lesser of two evils is going to be some tax relief for the middle class and some modest cuts, because everyone knows, even though you have both houses of Congress and the presidency, and a man who whose presidency is predicated on a pledge to revolutionize Washington, whether you believe it or not, you have all of the political capital in the world. And because the margin in the House is so small, you either take it or leave it. And they can lose like 2 people if everyone is voting. So I'm actually still very skeptical that this even gets across the finish line as a one big, beautiful reconciliation bill. It's possible that they end up having to break this up.
My bet is they figure out something.
The stakes are so high that it seems easy to imagine people compromising.
And it's easier to agree to something that actually doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah,
put it into
right.
law and then deal with the consequences
That's
later.
true. And none of this makes any sense.
Yeah, that would be in line with what we normally tend to do.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.